Hello, welcome to Real Film Snobs. I'm Brian Michael.
And I'm Angela Yeager. We have a special episode for you this week. We have extra special guests, Brian Hart and Scott Hossner, here with us. Welcome, guys.
Hey, thanks for having us.
They are our official Sundance Film Festival correspondents for this year. And how many years now has it been that you guys have been on the show talking about the Sundance Film Festival?
Well, I think this is only the third or fourth time I've been on the show.
Yeah, I used to go by myself.
Yeah, we used to just have Brian and then...
For 6 or so years.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't pulling my weight, so we had to call
He's
in
like,
the big
this guy
guns
crowded
everywhere.
me out. And, yeah, so we, now send our private Real Film Snobs chartered jet, to send them out to the
Yes,
film festival
thank you
every
for
year,
that.
and to bring you back the highlights from the film festival. It is the biggest film festival in America, just about, right?
Certainly
Independent
by
film
attendance,
festival. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the highlights from this year, the weird, wacky, wonderful stuff that was this Sundance Film Festival.
Brian, you said you were going to take this.
Oh yeah, I'll take this one. Well, so it was a good year. It wasn't my favorite year. I took last year off, so this was. But I've been more times than he has.
Yeah, it is a competition apparently. So.
No, so this was my 12th year.
Okay.
But it was right up there in one of the better years for sure. Robert Redford, for the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, he's really been pushing documentaries. So that's kind of the same thing he was talking about, is he wants to focus more on documentaries. He's trying to put them more in the spotlight and kind of get them buyers and things like that. And you can tell because the level of documentaries is really going up overall. I saw a lot of docs this year, and they were really good, and I'm not going to talk about any of them.
Would you call him Bob at this point?
Oh, yeah, no, everybody does
Bob.
call him Bob.
Best friend Bob, yeah.
That's right, Bob. It did seem like there wasn't so much focus this year on star power and films that with
nice.
big Hollywood stars. It was a little different for me this year because I don't go for the entire festival. I generally go for a week, and in the past I've gone to the first week of the festival. This year I went to the second week of the festival, and what that translated into was fewer star appearances, I guess, but far better selection of films that I was actually able to get into. And that won me over. I think that'll be my practice from here on out, is to go on the back end.
Yeah, because I know in years past you were frustrated. There were a lot of the talked about ones you weren't able to get into.
Indeed.
Yep.
Well, and it's a racket. The ticket purchasing process it changes every year, and it's very difficult. It's exacerbated by the fact that I've always tried to go opening weekend, which is when all the Hollywood folks are there.
Yeah. Well, with that, we're going to launch right into, I think, Scott's top picks of the Sundance Film Festival. So your first pick that you want to talk about.
Right. So I saw, I think, 25 films this year, and about 30 if you count the shorts. But my number one pick was one that ended up being both the grand prize winner and the jury winner, which is unusual.
Going with the popular one, Scott.
But deserving. And I think this is the second year straight that the same film won both the grand jury prize and the audience award. But it really was deserving. So 100 years ago, a film came out called Birth of a Nation. If anyone's ever seen it, it's a very, obviously everyone at this table has, a very significant film, but also quite a racist film. This film is also entitled Birth of a Nation, and that was not a mistake or an accident that it has the same name. It is a film that kind of explores the same time period, but explores, our country's original sin, slavery. Certainly there's been any number of films made about slavery. What really made this film unique was it was a true story. Well, first of all, it was written and directed by Nate Parker, I have no idea how he made this film, because he's starred in a few films, Hollywood films, only directed one short prior to this, and this was an ambitious film, period piece, about Nat Turner, who was a real-life slave preacher, who...
The Turner Rebellion, right?
Yes,
yeah,
and led a slave rebellion, and what really makes this film unique is that it's not, no pun intended, it's not a very black and white film. It's a film about slavery, but not every slave is noble, and not every slave owner is evil. And
it's complicated.
It's very complicated, and it does make you kind of sit back at times and go, who am I rooting for here, and why, and is this justifiable morally? Some of the things that happen. Nat Turner's slave owner, his owner, quote unquote, was actually a pretty decent man, and he became educated because he was on a plantation that treated their slaves quite well by comparison. But as the slave trade and some of that industry was beginning to suffer, other slave owners wanted to bring this preacher to their camp because he kind of believed in slave ownership from a biblical standpoint of respecting your slave owner and you're respecting your owner. And he saw how he was being used and eventually kind of turns a corner. And I don't want to spoil the film, but it was ambitious. It was an amazingly powerful film. Probably my only criticism would be the music's a bit overwrought at times, and that could certainly be fixed fixed as the film sees theatrical release. It certainly will see theatrical release late this year. It got picked up for a record sum of money.
How does it compare to something like 12 Years a Slave, which obviously was a big award winner type of movie? Because it sounds like this one's one that probably will be vying for awards.
Yeah, and after our controversial season of Oscars So White, it will probably get a little extra recognition. Just to be perfectly honest. I found the film more complex and a little bit more interesting than 12 Years a Slave, which was a more traditional look at slavery, more black and white look at slavery.
Okay, interesting.
So I really do recommend seeing it when it comes out, because it definitely will be coming to theaters. My second film is a huge departure from that, and really the one I talked about more than anything after the festival with people. It's called Tickled. It is a documentary about...
Brian's trying not to laugh already.
There's a documentary
Only imagine what it's about.
that explores the sport of extreme endurance tickling. Now, it doesn't really explore from the standpoint.
That's what I thought. Okay.
It doesn't explore from the standpoint of just a straight-up documentary about this. It approaches it from the standpoint of a reporter who, in Australia, was a reporter like on Entertainment Tonight, the Australian equivalent of that. And he found this Facebook post about extreme endurance tickling, and he thought, this looked fascinating. These are guys, like sporty young men tickling each other. And so he just wrote the folks on their Facebook page and said, I'm from Australia. I wonder if there's ever been any Australians that have competed in this, because I want to do this human interest story. And he got back this vile response from this owner of this website, basically extremely homophobic, saying, go away, we don't need your kind here, we know you're a homosexual, and this has nothing to do with homosexuality, get lost or I'll sue you. Which, of course, to him was an invitation to explore further. The next couple hours is a bizarre journey of investigative reporting of this guy tracking down this syndicate of extreme endurance tickling, which is just that. It really isn't pornography, but somebody's fetish for sure. They recruit young men. They're very specific about what they're looking for, but they're fully clothed. However,
and just getting tickled,
tied to a bed and being tickled for hours at a time. And then when people try to get out of this because they're getting embarrassed or they've made enough money or whatever, then the blackmailing starts. And they get blackmailed into continuing to do it.
To be tickled.
To be tickled and to appear in these videos. Wow. And if they don't, then they basically get their lives ruined by this guy who has incredible control and an ability to smear people over the internet and post things for their employers to see.
Wow.
And it's really bizarre. It's very funny and uncomfortable at times. And at the screening we were at, the filmmaker was, during Q&A, was asked, is anybody that participated in the film, here with you? And he says, no, most of these folks, I had a hard time getting any of them to talk on camera. They don't want to be, that public. And then the audience started kind of squirming behind me, and one of the lawyers from the film, who had been chasing this guy around, threatening to sue him as he travels around, was in the audience and had skirted out as the credits ended, but had been madly taking notes throughout the film and apparently exasperating and breathing deep and sighing as the thing went on.
Wow.
Preparing their lawsuit.
The website that this was.
I think if you look up extreme endurance tickling, you'll have no problem finding it. Yeah.
And I think Entertainment Tonight in Australia is called Entertainment Tonight.
Yeah. Down under. All right, so
Wow. Well, that sounds like an interesting
it
one.
is
So.
an interesting film. I have
Okay.
no idea if it'll get.
Hope
That
it's
definitely
released,
seems.
It is
I really
funnier
wanna
and
see
more
it.
At the
bizarre
very
than
least,
you
it
can
seems like
imagine.
something that would make it onto streaming or
Yeah,
something. Like
for
people
sure.
would.
And
That
it
would be a
is-
total cult movie.
Netflix.
It is
Yeah, for sure.
It is very much worth the watch.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just from the car wreck standpoint. It's
So what was it about that
fascinating.
you're to see the film to see it? Okay, never mind.
Extreme
Okay.
endurance
Next one.
Yeah.
Who could say no to that?
Yeah, exactly. Very different from Birth of a Nation. It sounds like. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
okay, so your
Absolutely.
and your third film.
The last film was certainly the most kind of conventional of the films that I saw at the festival this year. That nonetheless was very enjoyable. Called The Fundamentals of Caring. I think Brian
Saw
saw
that
this
one
movie
too.
too.
Yeah.
It is based on a book, a true story, a memoir of a young man played by Paul Rudd in the film.
Oh,
Who
Brian loves Paul
everybody
Rudd.
likes, but, well, youngish,
It's my age.
youngish, yeah.
Sure, don't think that.
But his character, as we enter the film, is recently divorced, and we find out through the backstory that he's lost a young son through a tragic accident, and he's very depressed and looking to kind of restart his life. And he gets into taking a course on in-home caretaking. And the bulk of the film centers around his first client that he gets, a young man who suffers from a particularly severe form of muscular dystrophy. And it's a buddy film and it's a travel film, and that's really what it is. The kid is wheelchair bound and can barely control his wheelchair and do very little else, needs help using the restroom, needs help doing everything, has a very overprotective mother who doesn't, who fears for him dying and doesn't let him out of the house, although she's convinced that it's the young man that is in a routine and he can't be broken out of his routine for his own well-being. But Paul Rudd and the two of them strike up a friendship and eventually take kind of a cross-country road trip together. Very conventional film, yet just really endearing. And unlike any good road film movie, has the little funny things that happen along the way.
Yeah.
The ending is
Feel-good movie.
hysterically overwrought. The film is just warm-hearted and funny, and I have very few criticisms of a very conventional film. Because of the budget, all the interiors of the car, and there are a lot of them while they're driving, are all
Right.
process shots, not to get overly inside baseball,
Right.
but that kind of feels a little bit. I wish they didn't have to resort to that, but they shot
But
the
it was
film
probably
in
pretty low
19
budget.
days or something, and you just can't shoot all those car interiors any other way in that time frame.
Well, it sounds like it's a big mix of films there. So
Yeah, for
I like
sure.
that you picked a good variety, though. You got
Yeah.
a little, you have sort of an epic period piece. You have the extreme tickling homophobia documentary, and the, nice
Well,
kind of
something
sounds
for
like
I could have
everybody.
used tickling,
indie comedy.
I think, and they've been fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
there might
think-
be tickling, a little bit of tickling in all the films,
Yeah.
just with different instruments.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a feeling
dear.
Brian's Hart's films are going to be quite different.
Yeah, my films are a little bit different. So this year, usually I talk about my favorite films as
Right.
well, and I thought that I would do something a little bit different this year because Sundance and really any independent film festival has a lot of really unusual movies that I
Right.
don't always talk about. And I've seen some of the worst and craziest and just
Yeah.
movies you will never forget, for
Right.
better or for worse. So we're going to talk about some
And
of
the
my
tickling one isn't in
unusual-
yours?
Well, I didn't see it.
Oh, so you can't. That
I'm
might
sure
have
it
made
could have
yours
been, yeah.
otherwise, but okay.
So I'm going to start with my first pick for my unusual picks is Yoga Hosers. And Scott saw this, so that's why I kind of picked it
You
too.
did. So you saw it, Scott?
I
Okay.
did,
Yes.
unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Oh,
So
well.
this is Kevin Smith, the second movie of his Rubber Monster trilogy.
What was the first
So,
one?
the first one was
State?
the horror.
I'll never forget,
Red, yeah,
Red State.
but
yeah.
I can't
Is that
remember what it was.
yeah, Red
Red
State.
State. Oh, okay.
Which I haven't actually seen. I don't think you have. They kind of intertwine, but I don't think you're missing a lot if you see this one.
Probably not.
This one
You're not
stars.
missing a lot if you don't see this one.
Okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Brian. Sorry.
This one, it stars Kevin Smith, his daughter, Harley Quinn Smith, and also Lily Rose Melody Depp, so Johnny Depp's daughter. So and they're friends in real life, and they've been in these two movies together.
Oh, so this is Johnny Depp's daughter. Oh,
Yes.
that's what I was reading on your notes.
Yes,
Lily
and
Rose,
so- and-
Melody Depp.
Angela's
Yes.
freaked out. Johnny Depp. Let's talk about
Johnny Depp
on
is
the show.
also in it. And
Johnny
you can
Depp is in
barely
it.
you
Oh,
can barely recognize him, but he is in it. Anyway, so I know Scott hated this movie, and of course you can't. When you're at Sundance, it's price of admission just to hear Kevin Smith before and after the film because he's hilarious and he just talks forever. And we're up until 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning listening to him, but it's hilarious. So that part is definitely worth it. And he is just great. He was cracking jokes in the lobby during the film, and it was just a lot of fun. The movie itself is not going to be for everybody, but I guarantee you there's going to be people that love this movie because it's just
kind
like
of a cult film.
girls.
it's not.
13-year-old
That's
girls.
what Kevin Smith said.
That's what he said it's made for, and I suppose maybe it is.
Yeah,
And what
well,
is-
and
what
he
is
said
the
that
name of it again?
Yoga Hosers. So it's all about. It makes fun of yoga in Canada. I
Canadians?
mean,
Okay.
it is definitely not even a B movie. It's like a C, D, like on purpose, super cheesy. The monsters are these. What are
And
they
it's for
called?
the-
Nazi bratwursts.
Yeah, Bratzies. They're
Bratzies.
Nazis, shaped like little bratwursts that.
And this is for 13-year-old girls? Are you sure? I
climb
think they
up
might be more
a person
sophisticated than
and
that. I don't
then-
think you're giving them credit.
come
I
through
was a
their
13-year-old.
Smith, I'm really worried now.
I was a 13-year-old girl once. I'm pretty sure I was not watching movies
Now
about
just
Nazi
wait for
bratwursts,
his
but-
third one is Moose Jaws, which is Jaws only a moose in the snow.
Okay.
So something to look forward to. You got to
But the Q&A was good. The Q&A was good, and you got a
Yeah.
free
Oh, yeah.
comic book.
You got
That's
free
true.
comic books.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, got to give you something for your time,
Yeah.
I suppose. But you enjoyed it, or sort of?
I
At least found it
enjoyed the
interesting.
experience. I enjoyed the
Right.
just wackiness of it all. And actually, once he talked about that he's not making this movie for critics, he's making movies that he wish he could have made when he was 14.
Like Ben Affleck.
But
It's
you
not
know,
for the
he's like,
critics, it's
no,
for
but
the
he's like, it's not. He doesn't even say it's for the fans. He said most people are gonna hate this, and I really don't care.
So it's for him.
He's just like I'm
and he got
making what
someone
I
to
want to
finance
do.
it. Who
Trying to make
He
it have fun.
pretty much finances it himself now. He does enough things.
chasing Amy money
Yeah.
still. Still.
And he did admit, as the movie started, that you probably won't like
Yeah,
this movie.
I mean, he is totally fine. Yeah, he says most of you are gonna hate this, and I am fine with that. And he
And they
thinks
were
it's
like-
funny when people are like, "This is horrible." He's like, "I know it's just terrible, isn't it?" He's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's great." Anyway,
Okay.
so
Okay.
there's something
so
for
yoga
everybody out
hosers
there.
for the 13-year-old bratwurst lovers. Okay.
Now, you thought that was bad. Wait until I
Okay.
talk about my next movie. It is called The Greasy Strangler. That's right, The Greasy Strangler.
God.
So this movie is a movie that you cannot unsee. They had a brilliant marketing campaign with this pink neon hat that said Greasy on it, and they were giving it out to everybody. So everybody was wearing these pink stocking caps. And let me read you what this movie's about. So Ronnie runs a disco walking tour with his son, Braden, when a sexy woman takes the tour. It begins a competition between father and son for her love. It also signals the arrival of an oily stranger who stalks the street at night. So yes.
At first, it was like conventional,
No.
kind of a love triangle, but then you got to the oily stranger. I'm not
And
sure.
they literally just poured this grease on this person, and they're just dripping with grease, and everything
And he's
is
stalking
greasy.
people.
And he strangles, literally, he
How hard
strangles
is it to
people and
find
kills
this guy?
them.
Just,
Well,
he
washes
strangles
himself. He washes himself off at the car wash, and everything's good.
And he strangles people while his hands are greasy. So how does he get?
He's very talented, greasy monster.
Okay. And that's the whole movie.
But
That's
it's the whole movie. This movie is
'Cause
so
I would think that might tickle.
insane that no, there's no tickling in this movie.
just strangling, no tickling.
But it is so crazy. There's like they do these certain little sayings, and they repeat it over and over and over, and they do these little weird moves and dance moves. They dance a lot, and
there's
they've got
dancing in it. Now I'm more interested.
the old guy's naked quite often with a. It's not made for television.
We're on prime time,
Yeah, I
Brian,
can't talk
okay.
about the rest of it, but it's quite
So this is a
wacky.
rated, very adult rating. I'm
Yeah,
assuming,
it's definitely not for the children. One of the sayings that they said probably 100 times was "Rudy Tooty Disco Cutie." So that's what the dad would call the gal that they were both fighting for. He kept calling her the Rudy Tooty Disco Cutie. And so imagine that, saying that 50 times in a row. And
I
that's
think
the scene of the
Brian-
movie.
I think that's Brian's idea
As
of
they're naked
purgatory.
dancing in the bedroom.
And
like
you
an
did you
advertising campaign,
do you
Brian.
recommend this, or do you recommend this only for people you hate that you want to torture?
You kind of, I don't know, because I thought about the movie all the time. We joked about it all the time. We couldn't stop talking about
Good
it
in
and
a group,
quoting the movie.
maybe after you've hit the bars
We
or
all
something.
kind of hated it, but some of us kind of were intrigued why we kept thinking about it. I couldn't stop talking about it when I came home and talked to my friends about this. it's just, you never know what you're going to get at Sundance, and
Yeah.
sometimes you get the Greasy Strangler.
Sometimes you get the
Greasy
Greasy
Strangler. That's not like your tagline for this year. You never know what you're going to get at Sundance. But sometimes you get the Greasy
grandmother
Strangler.
from the old country always used to say, sometimes you get the Greasy Strangler.
That's
It
right.
happens. Okay.
All right, so
Okay, the third
my
one.
last pick is definitely a very unusual pick, but I really enjoyed it.
Oh, good. One you finally really can
I
recommend.
liked. It's your typical Polish vampire mermaid musical. So that's
Angela, there you go.
It's like they made a movie for me, finally.
They finally found your diary.
Is there dancing in it?
And, lots of
Oh,
dancing.
dancing.
Really great
Polish
music.
vampire
Polish
mermaid
vampires.
musical with dancing.
Yeah, it is fantastic.
I've never been so excited. What is the name? I'm writing down right
So
now.
it's called The Lure.
The what?
The
The
Lure.
lure.
Yes.
Like a fishing lure?
Yes.
That's
There's
not
a
as
sport
exciting of a title as
competition.
the. Somebody on the marketing needs to get on that. I think they should just call it the Polish vampire
Mermaid.
Mermaid musical.
Yeah, I mean that's what we all called it. And,
Yeah.
and everybody knew instantly what you were talking about.
Oh, I would hope
obviously.
so. I don't think there's
What
five
kind of
of those.
music?
Okay. Yeah.
It's a lot of like discotheque kind of, yeah. So as they're, in the opening montage, it's like you're being, hypnotized by these vampire mermaids. It's so mesmerizing. The
Sounds
first
so awesome.
sequence.
I want to go right now.
And these,
I
and these,
literally want to walk off the set and just go see
so
this movie.
good. And it's a first-time director. I really can't pronounce her name, so maybe we'll put it in the Facebook post or the show notes or something. First time, and the Greasy Strangler also
Is it a
first
female
time.
filmmaker?
It is a female filmmaker.
Is it actually Polish?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely Polish.
Yeah.
Is the music good? Are the songs
It's-
catchy?
no, it's really good. I wanted to get the soundtrack, and it was really
Dance
cool.
along.
I admit I was kind of in love with one of the mermaids that was there, the actresses.
Oh, so there was an attractive
She kind of
yeah.
she put me under her spell right off the bat.
She bit
And
you?
they're pretty much naked the entire movie, so
Oh, well.
Oh, you
not
didn't
all
mention-
bad for
they're
that.
Okay,
they're
wait a minute.
completely
All bets
naked
might
the
be
whole-
off here at this
Pretty
point in
much.
time. Yeah.
They're
the entire
completely
time.
naked the whole movie. They don't have like mermaid they have mermaid
Well,
bottoms.
they do
and
have
they're mermaids,
the
right? They're not
yeah,
just naked
when
women
they go in the
walking
water,
around.
they grow a gigantic tail, which was really cool. Like, because you knew this was really low budget, but they did a really good effect with the tail, and they talked about that
A few of our
afterwards
crew members
as
are
well.
kind of losing it. I'm hearing laughter behind
It's
the
not the
camera.
size of the tail, by the way.
Okay.
And this did win special jury prize for World Cinema Dramatic, so I'm not the
Dramatic.
only one
was
that
it
liked
was
this
it a
movie.
drama? It almost sounded like a comedy the way you were.
It's got funny bits for sure. It's a musical, but
it's serious?
It's a thriller. It's got a little bit. I mean, they're vampires.
It's a thriller now.
It's a musical thriller. It's a romance movie.
you think- do you
It's
think
got
it
a
will-
little
do you
bit of
think it will get
everything.
any distribution,
Or they're
though, being
vampires and
I'm
mermaids?
really
or they-
hoping the cinema
No, they're
gets this
one and the
movie.
same, right?
So
They're
the
Poli-
vampire mermaids.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, well, that's different then. So
Yeah.
it's so.
It's a little
where
twist
do they
on
go
Little
during
Mermaid.
the night or during the day?
Under the
Does it
ocean,
go
it's dark.
further? Well, no. Well, does that count?
It's not traditional vampire lore, so
Okay.
they're their own Polish modified
Wow.
vampire mermaids. So.
I'm pretty excited about
It's
this. I mean,
really,
not like
really
the epic slavery movie wasn't exciting, but I don't know. The Polish
I've seen those. I've not seen vampire mermaids.
I guarantee you've
Polish
never seen a movie like
vampire
this.
mermaids. I'm pretty
wanna be
excited.
racist.
Yeah.
I hope it gets distribution. 'Cause
Yeah,
it
I
sounds
really-
like the type of thing that wouldn't get distribution. in
It's
the
gonna
US.
be
Again,
very
Put it on
limited.
Amazon or Netflix, and we'll just make a night of it. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
We have to have a party for that. Some
Yeah.
sort of Polish
Yeah.
vampire mermaid party. You didn't see this one, I'm
I did
assuming,
not
Scott.
see this film, and I'm regretting it.
Yeah, apparently.
It was pretty fantastic.
Yeah, that sounds
and
like we're good.
everybody that was there, they could barely speak English, but they were just a delight. They were all wonderful.
Did you get to meet the girl that you had your eye on?
Oh yeah, she was there, so I was kind of drooling all over the
Kind of
place.
drooling, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
well,
couldn't
glad
talk
we
to her,
just
she
admitted
couldn't
that
talk
on
to me.
television. Yeah, I couldn't say
I had to
anything.
fix that.
Once
She
you see
didn't.
her,
She didn't. Maybe you
everybody's
need
in
to
love
learn
with her,
Polish.
trust me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it sounds like we have some interesting picks this year. I think this
Yes.
was probably our most eclectic assortment of movies that
was the
you've
goal,
had between between the two of
It's
you.
a
I think
very
we've hit.
accurate snapshot of Sundance. There's
What celebrities did you all see?
Yeah.
Because you're still. I mean, Adama is still James Osmos.
Yeah.
Colleague,
That guy,
his name,
same
yes. There you go. He's still the tops in my book.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody cool to share?
I don't see too many that often. I mean, Kevin Smith, I talked with him quite a bit. That's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
You know, I'm sure there were a lot there. Scott probably didn't see as many because of the first half.
But Jason Ritter, who we've gotten to meet when he was here for the Salem Film Festival, of course, he was in 2 or 3 films at the festival, and he was there, and he's just like the ultimate of nice guys. Paul Rudd was enjoyable to hear him speak. I don't think too many people have. Ant-Man. It is Ant-Man, that's true. But genuinely a likable guy. I think most people just have kind of a soft spot for Paul Rudd. Without looking back through my phone, I forget the stars we see, but I do.
So above it, you are.
Well,
Well, they all blend together, all those tall, good-looking
After
people.
12 years.
Scott's like, I just look in the mirror, I see a tall, good-looking person every day. I don't know.
yeah, none of them are tall.
No,
That is
that's
true.
true.
Most-
They're not
most
tall.
Hollywood
Well, everyone's
stars
tall to me, Brian. Come on.
I don't know.
Sprites.
Well, it sounds like a really entertaining year, and
was
thank
fun.
you for letting us send you out to the.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for the jet.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes, no problem. Anytime.
If
we
I
can,
could put in a request for, tickling masseuses the next time we're flying.
on the
Well,
real
just
film
leave
stuff.
it the way you found
no
it.
greasy
That's all we really
stranglers.
asked
No
for.
greasy stranglers
Mermaids
and ticklers.
welcome, though.
Yes, dancing mermaid, vampire mermaids though. You're okay
it's
being
worth it.
bitten.
As
How
long as
the
they're
dance the
Polish.
mermaid? I guess the
Well,
Little
I want to
Mermaid
thank. Are we ready to wrap up? Are we
I think so.
close? Are we ready?
Is this enough small talk?
I don't
Because
know.
I think we could keep small
I
talking.
think-
We could
Yeah,
keep
I
small
still
talk.
want
We have
to-
we have
no,
1
no, it's a
minute.
minute.
We
We
have
got a
1 minute.
minute.
Oh my gosh, we gotta
wrap
take it
that
down to
up.
the
Do you
wire.
remember how to do it?
Yeah, I do.
You can do it.
Okay.
Don't look at your notes.
Okay, well, I want to thank Scott Hossner and Brian Hart,
you
our
very
Sundance
much.
correspondents,
Of
also a
course.
part of our wonderful sponsors, Allied Video Productions. And we would like to, as always, thank our sponsors of Real Film Snobs. I'd like to thank our wonderful crew, as always, for helping out and being here. You can check us out on our website at realfilmsnobs.com. Scott and Brian's reviews will be up there. Facebook and Twitter. We're also on KMUZ Radio every week. We'd like to wish you a great day and great movies. Thank you for watching.